Dillinger brought to Chicago, recaptured after he had escaped from Lima, Ohio. Taken to Crown Point, Indiana, the Lake County Jail to be tried for the murder of a policeman. This desperate public enemy now rises to fame as an underworld hero. Arrogant, that expression in his eyes. The welcome accorded to a vicious man-killer.
Dillinger's gang was different from other bank robbing gangs because they were very meticulous in their preparation. Sometimes he and the gang would use a ruse. They would say that they were from an alarm company or that they were shooting a movie and they wanted to check the place out. People believed them.
In December 1933, Dillinger and his gang were captured by local police in Tucson, Arizona. Dillinger was then extradited to the supposedly escape-proof Crown Point Jail in Indiana.
He took a piece of wood and a razor, carved the wood into what looked like a gun, and he colored it with black shoe polish. He used this to get past about a dozen guards and into a sheriff's car where he sped away.
Dillinger escaped across the state line, a federal crime. And this brought J. Edgar Hoover into the situation with what later became known as the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Dillinger set up a new gang which included Babyface Nelson and began another crime spree, robbing more than 6 banks in 4 different states. By the summer of 1934, the FBI had labeled John Dillinger Public Enemy Number 1 and put a $10,000 reward on his head.
John Dillinger was hiding out in Chicago with a friend of his, Anna Sage, a brothel madam.
Dillinger died when a trap was set for him by Melvin Purvis, an FBI agent, as well as the Indiana State Police, and Anna Sage, who was notoriously called the Lady in Red. She set him up, invited him to the Biograph Theater to watch a movie. When he came out of the movie theater, John Dillinger was gunned down.
Dillinger died on July 22, 1934. He was 31.
Thousands attend the homecoming of Clyde Barrow. In this Dallas funeral home, his body lies as a never-ending line of men, women, and children from every walk of life file by his casket for a fleeting glimpse of the boy who had wrought so much death and destruction. Everyone wants to see how such a bad boy looked in death. In life...
Over 3 days in May of 1934, throngs of onlookers flocked to 2 Dallas funeral homes, hoping to catch a last glimpse of the outlaws, Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker.
My dad said there was just lines and lines of people. They were mobbing the place. They couldn't have a decent funeral because everybody was just crowding around taking souvenirs.
Clyde's body is borne to the grave. He died at the hands of the law.
My grandpa went down to the funeral home to Clyde's viewing. It was probably a little bit of excitement for them. He was only one of thousands.
3 miles across the city from where Clyde's body lay, lies the body of Bonnie Parker, and here the crowd is even greater.
Bonnie and Clyde had been on a 2-year crime spree that left a trail of dead bodies in their wake. They were little more than a local curiosity until photos of the couple were discovered at a crime scene in 1933. Overnight, the country became transfixed by the scandalous images, press accounts of improbable escapes, and their illicit romance.
Bonnie and Clyde, who people are sort of making up stories about or getting sightings of, all of a sudden there are pictures, there are guns, and there's evidence.
It was a non-stop soap opera. Everybody was tuned into the radios, everybody was reading the papers, and actually it was almost like they were rooting them to get away.
In a world where there was very little to get excited about in summer 1933, Bonnie and Clyde were pretty big news.
Everybody was talking about the criminals, the bad guys. But Clyde and Bonnie had the one thing the others didn't, the whole true romance and the sexy scandal.
Bonnie and Clyde's notoriety would force them to take even greater risks to remain free and on the open road. As law enforcement's hunt was kicked into overdrive.
There wasn't going to be any arrest or any trial. It was going to be an execution.
Any one of these bullets would have been fatal to both, but after having killed 14 people, most of whom were officers of the law, and having come safely through so many gun battles, it did not seem advisable to fire just one bullet.
Back in Dallas, the spectacle of Bonnie and Clyde's demise drew tens of thousands of onlookers, all of them anxious to catch a last glimpse of the outlaw lovers they had read so much about. A large floral arrangement was sent from the Dallas newspaper vendors. In 2 days, they had sold almost 500,000 copies of extra editions.
To a few, it means grief. To the law, it's relief. But it's death to Bonnie and Clyde.